Imagine a civilization so large that if you tried to count its citizens one by one, you would run out of lifetimes before you ran out of numbers. A civilization that doesn't merely rival humanity, it overwhelms it, not by a factor of 2 or 10 or even 1,000, but by orders of magnitude. A civilization that has existed through ice ages, meteor impacts and mass extinctions, while empires rose and fell, while continents shifted, while entire species disappeared. It has cities, highways, farms, armies, nurses, construction crews, teachers and undertakers. It has an economy, it has logistics, it has warfare, it has agriculture and animal husbandry. It even has a form of medicine, because sometimes infection doesn't just kill its citizens, it hijacks them, turns them into something else, a real biological zombie. It sounds like science fiction, like a post-apocalyptic novel written by someone who watched too many horror movies and read too many anthropology books. But the truth is stranger, and it's right under your feet. The largest civilization on Earth isn't human. It's ants. Before we go anywhere, we need to deal with the scale of the thing we're talking about. Ants are small, so our brains automatically file them away as background life, like dirt, like static. You see a line of ants and you think, oh, a few dozen, maybe 100, but that's like looking at a single street at rush hour and trying to estimate the population of the planet. Ants are everywhere. They occupy deserts and rainforests, mountains and suburbs, grasslands and coastlines. They live in the cracks of sidewalks and in canopies high above the ground. They inhabit almost every land ecosystem on Earth, except the harshest frozen regions. And because they're small, because they're efficient, and because they cooperate at a scale most animals can't even comprehend, their total numbers are staggering. Scientists estimate that the Earth may hold something like 10 quadrillion ants, 10,000 trillion individuals, an amount so large that the number itself stops meaning anything. If you gathered every ant on Earth into one place, their combined biomass would be measured in tens of billions of kilograms. That means ants, as a collective living mass, can rival or exceed the weight of humanity at various points in our own history. And they did all of this without factories, without electricity, without metals, without writing a single word. They built a civilization purely with biology. Now, civilization is a loaded word. It's a human word. When we say civilization, we imagine cities, laws, culture, technology, but strip civilization down to its essentials and it becomes something simpler, a structured society with division of labor, communication, resource management, and long-term survival strategies. Ant colonies have all of that, and in some ways they're better at it than we are. Because an ant colony doesn't just behave like a group, it behaves like a single organism, a superorganism. Each ant is like a cell, a specialized unit performing a job, following signals, contributing to a larger collective intelligence that emerges from millions of interactions. So where did this civilization come from? Ants are ancient. Not dinosaur ancient like we casually say, but genuinely deep time ancient. They evolved tens of millions of years ago, branching off from wasp-like ancestors, and then they exploded into diversity. Today there are thousands upon thousands of ant species, each adapted to a different environment, each with its own strategies for survival, conquest, and cooperation. Some ants are tiny, just a couple of millimeters long, living almost invisibly in leaf litter. Others are giants by ant standards, several centimeters long, with jaws built like bear traps. Fossils show that some ancient ants grew even larger, with wingspans that look almost unreal for an insect. And that's another mind-bending fact. Ants have wings, not the workers you see crawling around, but the reproductive caste. Ants are Hymenoptera, the same order as bees and wasps, winged insects. The colony you observe on the ground is only part of the story. The sky is part of the story too, because the ant world runs on a system that feels shockingly political. In many ant societies, most individuals will never reproduce. Imagine a civilization where reproduction is not a right but a privilege, reserved for a tiny ruling class. In ant colonies, the queen is the engine of the future. She lays eggs. She produces the next generation. She is not a leader in the human sense. She doesn't command armies or make conscious decisions, but she is the biological core. In many species, workers are female, but their reproductive systems are suppressed or underdeveloped. They are effectively sterile. Their job is not to produce offspring. Their job is to build the colony and keep it alive. Reproduction becomes a specialized profession. And the way new colonies begin is one of the most dramatic events in the insect world, the nuptial flight. On the right day, often triggered by temperature, humidity, and season, winged males and winged females emerge from their nests in huge numbers. They launch into the air, they mate mid-flight, and then something brutal happens. The males die soon after. Their entire existence is compressed into one mission: deliver genetic material. The fertilized female, the future queen, lands and breaks off her own wings, not because she's injured, but because she's done with that phase of life. Wings are no longer useful, they are just a liability. She then searches for a place to start a new colony, often alone, often vulnerable, sometimes hunted by birds, lizards, or other ants. If she survives, she becomes the founder of a civilization. And in some species, the story gets even stranger. Some ants reproduce without males at all, a form of cloning parthenogenesis, where females produce female offspring from unfertilized eggs. In certain populations, entire colonies can become genetic copies, a civilization of near-identical individuals. It sounds like a superpower, reproduce without needing a mate. But it comes with a terrifying weakness: low genetic diversity. If a disease appears that can infect one individual, it can infect them all. A clone civilization can be wiped out by a single biological exploit. In the ant world, evolution constantly plays this trade-off game: efficiency versus resilience, unity versus diversity. Now, let's talk about what makes ant civilization feel truly human: the division of labor. A mature ant colony is not a random swarm. It's a structured society with roles that shift based on age, needs, and environment. Young workers often stay inside the nest where it's safer. They tend the queen, clean chambers, feed larvae, and perform nursing duties. As workers age, many move into riskier external roles: foraging, scouting, defense. This is not just instinct, it's an efficient allocation of risk. Losing an older worker is less costly than losing a young worker that still has many productive years ahead. Ant colonies manage life expectancy like a resource. Some colonies even have specialized castes, soldiers with oversized heads and jaws, built for defense. Workers that act like living storage tanks, swelling with food reserves until their bodies become biological pantries. Engineers that build and repair, scouts that search new territory. And what's mind-blowing is that ants accomplish coordination without a central command center. No mayor, no general, no brain making a master plan. Their civilization emerges from simple rules and powerful communication. Ant communication is where the science starts to feel like magic. Ants live in a world where smell is language, pheromones are chemical messages, signals left on surfaces, carried in the air, transferred mouth to mouth. An ant finds food and lays a pheromone trail on the way back. Other ants detect it with their antennae and follow it. If the food is good, they reinforce the trail, strengthening the signal. If the food runs out, they stop reinforcing the trail, and it fades. This is decentralized decision-making. The colony doesn't need a meeting to decide whether a resource is worth harvesting. The trail itself becomes the vote. Strong trail, yes. Weak trail, no. Ants invented algorithmic logistics without knowing what an algorithm is. And pheromones aren't just about food. There are alarm pheromones for danger, recruitment pheromones for mobilizing workers, recognition pheromones for identifying nestmates, because in the ant world, identity matters. Ants can detect intruders by smell. A wrong scent can trigger instant aggression. This is border security at the chemical level, but ants don't rely only on smell. Many species can detect vibrations through the ground, sensing danger, movement, even the footsteps of predators. Some can produce sounds by rubbing body parts together, tiny chirps used for communication inside the nest. It's easy to underestimate this because we don't hear it. But ants aren't communicating for us. They're communicating in a channel our senses aren't tuned to detect. Now let's talk about one of the most insane achievements of ant civilization: agriculture. Humans like to think agriculture is our signature invention, the moment we became civilized, but ants were doing it long before we were. Certain ants practice fungus farming. They gather plant material, chew it into a pulp, and use it to cultivate fungal gardens inside their nests. The fungus becomes their primary food source. They weed out contaminants. They protect the garden from pests. They maintain temperature and humidity. This isn't random behavior, it's a stable agricultural system. Some ant colonies have been farming fungus for millions of years. That means ants created agriculture while our ancestors were still small mammals trying not to get eaten. And ants don't stop there. Some ants practice animal husbandry. They farm aphids, small sap-feeding insects, protecting them from predators and moving them to better feeding sites. In return, aphids produce a sweet liquid called honeydew, which ants drink. This is a mutualistic partnership that functions like livestock management. Ants are ranchers. Now imagine a civilization that can farm, ranch, build highways and coordinate millions of workers. What about education? Ants don't teach in classrooms, but research suggests some ants can learn through social interactions and guidance. Experienced foragers can influence the movement of younger ants, leading them to resources. Colonies can adapt routes over time, finding alternate paths when obstacles appear. Ants, remember, they map, they optimize. If a reliable food source appears at a certain time each day, ants can learn that schedule and arrive on time. That's time-based behavior that feels disturbingly close to planning, again, not in the human conscious sense, but in a functional sense. Civilization doesn't require self-awareness, it requires coordination that works. And then there's infrastructure. Ants build nests that function like cities underground, chambers for larvae, storage rooms, waste dumps, ventilation shafts. Some nests extend deep into the soil, regulating temperature and humidity like climate-controlled architecture. Some ant species build living bridges with their own bodies, linking gaps so other ants can cross. Some build rafts in floods, locking together into floating lifeboats. Think about that, a civilization that can turn its citizens into structural components on demand, a living architecture. Of course, where there is civilization, there is conflict. Ants wage war, not metaphorically, literally. They raid rival colonies, steal larvae, conquer territory, fight in battles that, at ant scale, are apocalyptic. Some species enslave other ants, capturing pupae and raising them to work in their colony. That is slavery in the biological world, one species exploiting another through social manipulation. Some ants are specialized raiders, living almost entirely through theft. Others are territorial empires, expanding and defending borders like nations. But the most shocking part isn't that ants fight. Many animals fight. The shock is the scale and organization. Ant warfare can be strategic, coordinated attacks, flanking maneuvers, mass recruitment through pheromone signaling. A trail becomes a supply line, a scent becomes a battle order. Ants run war on chemistry. Now, if this all sounds like an unstoppable super-civilization, here's where the story takes a dark turn. Because no matter how large the civilization is, biology always has vulnerabilities. And one of the most terrifying vulnerabilities in the insect world is parasitic infection, especially fungal parasites that can hijack behavior. Some fungi infect ants and manipulate their nervous systems, altering their movement patterns in ways that serve the fungus's reproduction. An infected ant may abandon normal colony behavior, wander away, climb vegetation, and lock its jaws onto a leaf or stem in a death grip. Then the ant dies. The fungus grows from its body and releases spores to infect others. That's not metaphorical zombification. That is a living organism being turned into a delivery system for another organism's reproduction. A citizen turned into a walking bioweapon against its own civilization. This is one reason ants are so interesting. They exist at the intersection of cooperation and catastrophe. Their society is powerful, but it is also constantly under threat from predators, from rival colonies, from parasites, from environmental changes. Yet ants persist. They persist because their strength isn't in individuals, it's in systems. Lose hundreds of workers, the colony adapts. Lose thousands, the colony adapts. In many cases, the colony can survive enormous losses because the queen continues producing new workers and the system rebalances. Ant civilization is resilient because it's modular. It's distributed. It doesn't collapse when one component fails. And that brings us back to the core idea. Ants have built the largest civilization on Earth, not through intelligence as we define it, but through collective organization. Their cities are not made of stone, they are made of tunnels. Their laws are not written, they are encoded in pheromones and behavior. Their internet is chemical signals passed through a colony until everyone has the update. Their economy is a flow of resources, constantly optimized by trails that strengthen or fade based on success. Their agriculture is fungus gardens. Their livestock is aphids. Their military is organized mass recruitment. Their healthcare includes grooming behaviors and quarantine-like responses in some species. Their funeral practices include removing dead individuals from the nest to reduce disease risk. They do not build skyscrapers, but they build systems that have lasted for millions of years. So the next time you see ants on a sidewalk, don't see them as random insects. See them as the edge of a civilization that you live above, like a planet orbiting another planet. Because ants don't just live on Earth. In many ways, Earth is also theirs. They are one of the planet's dominant success stories, proof that cooperation, scale, and specialization can create something that looks uncannily like an empire. And maybe that's the most unsettling thought of all. If civilization is defined by organization and survival, then humans aren't the only civilization builders here. We're just the loudest. Ants built a civilization that does not need metal, does not need fire, does not need language. They built it with chemistry, instinct, and collective intelligence, and they built it so well that it may outlast us, just as it outlasted so many worlds before our own. So here's the question to leave you with. If a civilization can exist without architecture, without art, without writing, if it can exist as pure system, then what does that say about civilization itself? Maybe civilization isn't a human invention. Maybe it's a strategy life discovers again and again, whenever the conditions allow it. And right now, the largest version of it is marching in lines beneath our feet, building roads, tending farms, raising the next generation, defending borders, and quietly proving one tiny step at a time that the planet belongs to more than one kind of society. If you want more videos like this where nature turns out to be stranger than fiction, subscribe and tell me in the comments what animal civilization should we explore next. Disclaimer, this video is an educational narrative based on established biological and ecological concepts. Specific ant behaviors vary widely by species and region, and some examples are simplified for storytelling clarity.